I've noticed, maybe you guys have too, some growing pains within the libertarian movement. A lot of people who used to be active are kind of frustrated, they've kind of checked out, they're just not as passionate anymore. Some libertarians, for whatever God-known reason, have gone to Bernie Sanders, which is, thank you. They were more anti-establishment than libertarian, perhaps. Then there's some libertarians who have gone to Donald Trump. Wow, more Donald Trump booze. What they've joined what's called the alt-right. They've gotten fed up with the political correct libertarians and the SJWs within the movement, and they've decided to go win with the alt-right. So there's quite just kind of a lack of passion and division within the libertarian movement lately, which to me is just very sad. It hurts my heart because I remember what the libertarian movement used to be like. Okay, now I know I'm not that old, but I've been around the block sometimes, and I used to remember I want to kind of take you guys back. 2004, I was 15 years old, and I didn't really fit in anywhere, including my politics. I grew up in a very conservative household, very pro-police, pro-military, not exactly libertarian friendly. But I started to think for myself when I became a teenager and started to think, okay, it's George W. Bush's War on Terror. I decided why were we fighting these wars? What was being accomplished? That kind of questions. And it was so confusing at the time because I knew I was not a liberal. I hate communism. I still do. I knew I believed in free market capitalism. I believed in entrepreneurship, all that kind of stuff. But I was starting to have these thoughts about war, that maybe war wasn't so great. And I was so confused. Around that time, on the internet, I found the word libertarian. And I looked it up, and I never ever heard this word before, but it said people who want maximum freedom. I was like, okay, that sounds like a good thing. I looked more into it, and I realized that there was a word to describe my views. And to me, that was so just eye-opening, wow, I'm not so lost. There's actually a philosophy behind this. And that was so amazing when I was 15 years old to discover this. Then a couple years later, I went to college as a political science major, and my views were not exactly welcomed in the classroom. I had a lot of socialist professors, a lot of students talking about universal health care, raising the minimum wage. At the time, Darfur was still a big thing, which now nobody really talks about, but I just remember people saying that I was this evil person because I don't believe in intervening in these conflicts overseas, and it was lonely to be in college and no one really agreed with me, and it was a sad time, but I was 18 years old and I was just kind of stupid. I was very shallow and I was just out partying in college, and I didn't really have a mission in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. That all changed spring 2007, presidential debates with Ron Paul, South Carolina, Rudy Giuliani. If you guys remember this moment, it was Ron Paul speaking about blowback on the stage. And Ron Paul stood up there and he was extremely brave and he just told the truth, and Rudy Giuliani was just basically calling him this isolationist, this crazy uncle guy. And Ron Paul just stood there and just told it like it was. And I was so inspired by it. And I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to spread these ideas. It was just I had such a passion for these ideas, and I told everybody I knew about it. I became that Ron Paul girl. This was way before I ever had a YouTube channel on my campus, and it was good to finally have something to believe in my life. And I learned about all this stuff like the Federal Reserve, which I had no idea about, and it was just eye-opening to discover all these ideas. And then I went to Ron Paul rallies. And for the first time, I was surrounded by people who thought the same way that I did. And that was so rare. And now sometimes, 2016, I'm in this room and I'm just so used to being around people who think like me. But back then, that was such an unusual thing. And I just remember whenever I saw somebody with a Ron Paul bumper sticker, you automatically became best friends with that person. It didn't matter, like now there's a lot of division, like, oh, you're a left libertarian, you're a right libertarian, whatever, but back then it was like, oh, you're a Ron Paul supporter, like, let's hang out, let's be friends, and it was such a creative time watching Ron Paul people on YouTube, which before I had a channel, and doing songs, and people walking across the country in these silly sine waves, which I don't know if it really did anything, but just people coming together to talk about these ideas. And it was such an amazing thing, like the Ron Paul money bomb, the Tea Party money bomb. I remember just watching the ticker all day and go up and up and up. It was such a great time to be alive. And really, what I realized is that being in the libertarian movement made me a better person, as cheesy as that sounds. Like, I feel like I'm just a more honest person, like my word means more, like I care about my reputation, all this kind of stuff because I'm the libertarian movement. And of course, Ron Paul, 2012, I was on board. And then there's kind of a void in the movement. People didn't know what to do. Some people went to anarchists, some people went to Rand Paul, and whatever side you're on, I don't care. But then, of course, we're kind of here, and we have Gary Johnson. He's okay. But he doesn't really, people really among the libertarian crowd aren't quite as passionate about him. So there's kind of just a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, who are just kind of frustrated and kind of just checked out. So I want to talk about how to get excited about liberty. People ask me, why are you still excited about liberty? Like, how can you keep doing what you're doing? So I want to give some tips maybe. First, I went through a phase where I read all these alternative media sites, the doom and gloom, economic collapse is just around the corner, build your bunker now, those kind of things. I would suggest not reading those things as much, because during that time, I was just I wanted to just quit activism because I was in such a bad mood. I thought, this is it, like, we're gonna all die tomorrow, what's the point? And I realize now that those websites are just trying to make money off of people's inner paranoia, which I didn't get back then. Alternative media can be as worse or even worse than the mainstream media because they're not really giving you the facts, they want the clicks, they want the money. So be sure your sources are accurate and don't get sucked into that doom and gloom crap. The next is, and Liberty Memes talked about it, is to have fun with it. I try not to take myself too seriously online because if I did, I'd lose my mind. People on the internet, they're just ridiculous. No matter what I do on the internet, I'm going to get some criticism for it. So I've definitely learned this. I could write, I hate Hillary Clinton on my status. And there would be people saying, Julie, why do you support Hillary Clinton? No matter what, like, people will misinterpret everything you say. And it's just ridiculous. So you have to just not take it too seriously and realize that people are going to be stupid. And that's okay. Because of this, I kind of like to troll my own audience. I've done this a bunch of times where a lot of people don't get satire. I posted this meme recently, a couple months ago, about AR-15s, how they shoot like 1,000 rounds per second. It was basically making fun of liberals who had no idea what our AR-15s are. It's making fun of them, but I posted this meme, and I came back, and it had like 5 million people reached. And there was all kinds of people talking trash about me, calling me a libtard, all this kind of stuff. And I just had to sit back and just laugh at it, because that to me is hilarious. I hate explaining jokes. It's the worst, it ruins the joke. So I've learned just to let it go, and half the things I do is just to amuse myself. I recently posted, I went to Australia and they had a wax museum with a bunch of people, well-known people, and Oprah was in there. So I took a picture with Oprah and I posted it on my Facebook page, and some people really thought that was Oprah, me giving an interview with Oprah. And I was just laughing off reading these comments because, like I said, you have to amuse yourself, not take yourself so seriously, or you're just going to get burned out. The next tip is don't lose yourself. So in the beginning, I probably did this a little bit, that my entire life became libertarianism and politics, and people don't like to be around you just in your normal life. If all you talk about is politics, 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 and you don't have an identity outside of libertarianism. So really get some freaking hobbies. Because you'll get burnt out, because sometimes, well, a lot of times, it's hard to be a libertarian. You don't win a lot. So get something that you care about besides libertarianism, because you'll be more passionate about libertarianism if you have other things to fall back on, or, just take a break from politics every now and then to recharge yourself and then get back into it. Remember why you got involved in the first place. Like I said, I like to revisit the Ron Paul campaign. I like to watch old Ron Paul videos on YouTube because it brings back those memories on why I got involved. I think that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some people kind of get involved for the wrong reasons. Now it's kind of like almost becoming a bandwagon thing to be a libertarian. So they try to start blogs and YouTube channels to become like libertarian famous. That's dumb. Because you look like a dishonest person and you'll get tired of it. There has to be a reason that you're getting involved. So remember what that reason is and try to focus on the positive, because there is some positive stuff. When I talk to old-time libertarians, people who were libertarians in the 70s and the 80s, one thing they always tell me is how great the internet is. And I've lived basically my entire life with the internet. I was in like second grade and I was trolling the internet. So I don't understand the internet. I don't understand how great it is. Because they talked about, when they were my age, they didn't have access to these books that we have. And now we can just go on Mises.org and download books in a matter of seconds. We have all this information at our fingertips, where the old-time libertarians, they didn't have that. And there's such low barriers of entry to getting involved. Anyone can start a meme page on Facebook. Anyone can start a YouTube channel. I was nobody when I started a YouTube channel. I just started making videos in my bedroom and talking about things that I cared about and people watched. That obviously wasn't possible 20 years ago. You had to know somebody, you had to get on TV, you had to have all these connections, you had to have all this money. Now if you have the internet, you can just start a YouTube channel and gain a following that way. I believe that libertarianism is catching on. Sometimes it doesn't seem that way, but I remember back in the day when I said that I was a libertarian, people didn't know what I was talking about. People didn't even know I was talking about politics. They were just like, is that a religion? Like, what are you talking about? So it really is catching on. I'll use the example of Gary Johnson. I know people have different opinions, but something really weird's happening. On my Facebook page, I have, libertarians, and I have normies, just normal people that I know. And usually it's the libertarians always talking about politics and, philosophy and stuff, but I've seen some normies post about Gary Johnson. And that's so weird to have those two worlds collide. It's like people talking about Gary Johnson should be invited to this debate. I'm like, hey, who is this? Wait, I went to high school with that person. Like, I didn't meet that person at a conference. Like, that was my high school friend. So that's something that's really, really, really promising. I also think there's some promise in popular culture. One of my favorite movies of the past couple years is The Hunger Games. The Giver also came out with a movie, one of my favorite books. We're seeing all kinds of things in popular culture that is libertarian. I know it is hard to be a libertarian, and sometimes you do kind of get tired of it and say, what's the point? Is anything changing? But, it's too important not to be involved. I do believe we are making a difference, and sometimes people want differences right away, But like I said, I have a YouTube channel, meme page, whatever, where millions and millions of people can be exposed to those ideas, which we didn't have in the past. So I want people to stay involved and stay active about liberty, because it's too important not to. And I'll take any questions that you guys have.